All right, welcome to the January 2nd, 2024 work session for the City Council. Happy New Year to everyone. We're happy to have those of you with us. I know both of you are interviewing, so appreciate you being here. We will start right away with our boards and commissions interviews. It's very simple. We'll ask you to come to the microphone so anyone who's on Zoom can hear you, and we do have one of our colleagues there. Just tell us a little bit about why you want to serve on this particular commission and also what strengths you might bring to that commission. We'll maybe ask a couple of questions if council has any, and then you're welcome to stay here with us for the meeting. And you're also welcome to go on with your Tuesday evening. That we won't hold that against you either. All right, so the first interview, and I believe we're doing both of these for the Green Space Advisory Commission. Jeannie Kleckner, am I even close? Please come right on up to the microphone. And just if you'll let us know why you'd like to serve and what you think you might bring to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. My interest in serving is that I have entered a state of semi-retirement, and I can tell already that I'm being requested with volunteerism. And so it caused me to think and be deliberate and intentional about how I want to volunteer. And I decided that my biggest interest is climate. And I applied to the Sustainability Commission, and they didn't have an opening, so I was directed to the Green Space Board or Commission. I've lived in Webster Groves 23 years. I've been an active volunteer in the school district when a parent of a student, and active in Girl Scouts. I am an avid gardener and involved in the St. Louis Wild Ones, which is the Native Plant Society. And if you didn't know, St. Louis has the largest chapter in the country.
Oh.
Isn't that incredible?
Yes.
I think it was in 2013, I applied to the Deer Creek Watershed Alliance and got a grant to put a rain garden in my backyard, our backyard, because of water issues. So I've been a rain gardener for 12 years.
Great, thank you very much. Are there questions from council?
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
David, I'm just going to ask you directly since I don't know, I'm hoping you can hear us just fine.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And you'll hear from the city clerk very shortly.
Okay.
All right. Ashley Merrims is next, also for the Green Space Advisory Commission. And same drill.
And I brought an elf. I found this on the front door here. And it reminded me of one of, some of the things I love about Webster Groves. We've lived here almost 2 years. I have a garden in California. I have a garden, I'm starting in Webster Groves. I'm a member of the Webster Groves Garden Club and the Missouri Botanical Garden. I do love gardening and I do love Webster Groves. This guy kind of just reminds me that like Webster Groves is very civic minded and there's lots of history and fun. And so I wanted to serve in a way that I enjoyed. And because I've been asking a lot, I also believe in giving back to the community, and this is the way I'd like to.
All right. Thank you. Are there questions?
Thank
David?
you.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. We will get back to making some appointments. I hope all of you saw we have some reappointments that we'll need to consider as well, but we'll do that after our updates and our topic of special initiative funding. So I will just start with you as usual. I guess I'm right-handed. I always go this way. So thank you very much.
I do not have any updates today.
No updates.
No updates.
It feels like we just met and I don't have any updates.
I echo that, Madam Mayor.
Okay, I'm going to guess since the city attorney is running to his coat, he's either getting notes or doesn't have any updates. Oh, thank you.
And I
And
had no phone.
Councilmember Franklin,
No updates for me too, Madam Mayor.
we're going to break the streak, guys. Sorry about that. Madam Clerk.
You're going to be shocked. I have two updates. Just for the record, I wanted to announce that there are 3 council member candidates for the April 2024 election. And I just wanted to note that even though there are only 3 open seats, the city does have to place the slate of candidates on the ballot per state statute section 115.124, since we do have a population of more than 2,000 inhabitants. So the candidates are Jamie Hasselmeyer, Karen D. Alexander, and Emerson E. Smith. And also, the second announcement is, I wanted to announce that the new part-time deputy city clerk, Karen Rangel, will begin employment tomorrow. And her formal designation will be announced at the next council.
Is the next
meeting.
one? Okay, great.
Thank you.
Great.
All right, thank you. Let's see, I guess that leaves me, and I do have a couple, not nearly as many as usual. The Arts Commission kicked off our 2024 meeting of boards and commissions this morning. They are working on a resubmission of the park naming now that we have a policy. They're gonna consider that. There was not a quorum this morning. It looked like those who were there wanted to do it, but without a quorum, they couldn't make a formal decision. The same goes with replacing the City of the Arts banners. I don't know if you've noticed, they're looking a little worn. Thanks to Jenny Starkey and some work in-house. We're going to do it in a way that costs the city no money, but also advertises our arts organization specifically. So that should roll out sometime this spring as well. So we're a little ways away from that, but I think it's an exciting option. And then Mr. Peterson and I were talking just before the meeting. The National League of Cities Congressional Cities Conference is March 9th through 13th. If any council members are interested in going. I did want to say just, I heard from somebody over the break. They wanted to know why we have become more involved in the National League of Cities. And I wanted to emphasize that our partnership with them has led to resources that we have leveraged to grants, to other kinds of opportunities. And so I think it's been a good investment for us. And I know I intend to go to this conference, and please let Dr. Peoples know if anyone else intends to go to the conference as well. DC. So it's 2 days of workshops and things, and then 1 day or a day and a half of workshops, and then 1 day on Capitol Hill itself. And that's it for my update. So we're going to just dive right into our topic for the evening, which is the Special Initiatives Funding Overview.
Madam Mayor, members, thanks, later, as we got PowerPoint up. This is in relation to the request from Councilmember Bliss and some others to discuss special initiatives funding and some other.
Eric, I don't think your microphone's on.
You're right, it's not. I forgot to press the button that I've told you all to press many times. So, thanks again, and Councilmember Franklin and members. This is in relation to the Special Initiatives Fund and also other funding and project issues. So our plan tonight is to go over our capital and special revenue fund balances for you. Look at our list of upcoming projects that are unbudgeted and currently do not have a funding stream attached. Review the floodplain properties in relation to the conversations that we've had with FEMA and also the funding streams attached to those floodplains. And also to look at project funding recommendations from the administration and allow you all to discuss, to ruminate on those topics. So if there's any point you have a question, feel free to stop me and we'll go over things. So first of all, our capital and special revenue fund balances. These are for FY 23 at the end of 23. So this comes out of our audited financial statements. The American Rescue Plan, we have a balance of 375,000 and some change left to allocate is the term. Those are from unencumbered and spent funds from the 23 budget. The Special Initiatives Fund has a $95,000 balance that we left in that fund balance at the beginning of the budget for this year. Capital Improvement Fund balance is at 1.395 million. The large capital asset replacement is at 319,000. Street Improvement Fund at 874,000 and the Stormwater Fund at about 1.5 million. The funds that are here generally have specific uses tied to them. Really, their name tells you what we can use them. The large capital asset replacement is a product that the council made. It is not a separate tax revenue. But city policy does limit those investments to over $300,000 in terms of an asset replacement. You obviously can exempt that policy, but it is the point of that fund and that replacement that we've created.
Before you
Yep.
go on, I do have a question. So when we look at, for example, the capital improvement balance.
Yep.
What is that relationship to the projects that we approved in the FY24 budget?
So these numbers here are independent of the budgeted funds in 24. So this is the fund balance, meaning the amount in that is not encumbered or appropriated
Okay.
for projects that you approved in the budget. So the about $1 million worth of capital investments you made from the capital improvement fund in the 24 budget are not included in that number.
So those are all good to go unless we, not like the city hall roof or something, unless we find out something costs more than we have budgeted.
That's correct. yes.
Okay, thank you.
So looking ahead to unbudgeted projects, again, these are projects that are not in the FY24 budget or have had an estimate that has, come in above where we anticipated. So just to, sorry for the little, on the bottom here, it got a little crunched up on you, but I'll go over those. City Hall roof did come in over estimates because of some asbestos in the roofs. So that budget that cost is going to be about $490,000 to replace the roofs. You're looking at the area back here. Some of the finial and such over above the hose tower. I put allowable funds there, meaning from the administration's point of view, and also I think from a plain reading of the statutes and the taxing authorities, these are the funds that you could apply to that project. If you wanted to use funds, you can use these funds that I listed there. So to give you an example, we obviously cannot use the stormwater fund for the city hall roof. It doesn't equate legally to the use. We are very happy to get the Safe Streets for All grant. That's $2.1 million for pedestrian and traffic calming planning. Again, National League of Cities, very helpful with getting that grant, but we must have the match for that of $549,000. Street improvement special initiatives are eligible. The South Elm multi-use path, that grant match is required. It's just a shade under $1 million. Again, that's a federal grant through East West Gateway that will build a multi-use path down South Elm from Glendale to Watson. And we will need a match of that in the coming 2 years. The fire engine is scheduled for replacement. Right now, this is the big stress on the capital improvement fund for when we have to encumber those funds. 1.1 million really is one whole year's worth of revenue. And we obviously we would not be able to do other capital funds out of that fund, capital projects out of that fund if we moved it all from the capital fund.
And reminds me how old the fire engine is, please, that we're replacing.
So this would be taking the current fire engine, which I believe is 14 to 16 years old, somewhere in that range, moving that to reserve status, and then the new engine would be placed in that place.
Thank you.
And then we have 2 culverts on the bottom here. And so I will explain OMCI funds shortly. I know you've seen some of them up there. Again, apologize about the formatting here. But we do need to come to the table with a match of $305,000 for the Elm at Kirkham culvert. That grant has been awarded through East West Gateway and MSD. So we are to replace that culvert, which is certainly critical to the Shady Creek issues of stormwater. We'll need that. And then Gore and Kirkham, just upstream near Red Lemoore and such in the Sculpture Park. That is our next project, and that is not going to be eligible for that same grant and atmosphere. So we need about $506,000 to redo that. It's a different style of culvert, but we aren't going to have that same grant opportunity that we got for the other culvert.
Hey,
But
Eric,
David
can I ask a question about the fire engine?
Sure. Councilmember Franklin, I had a question from Councilmember.
Oh, yeah, sorry, my
Okay,
apologies.
no
Go
problem.
ahead.
No, I'll get to the fire engine. From what I understand, it's due to the nature of the intersection and the size of the water channel that needs to be replaced. But Public Works would have that fuller detail, but that's what I understand if I'm correct, Dr.
That's absolutely correct. They had to do with the size of the culvert.
Councilmember Franklin to the fire engine.
Yeah, so since I've been on council, we've purchased 2 new fire trucks. So this would be a 3rd new fire truck.
I think you've purchased an ambulance and a ladder truck.
No,
Since-
we did
purchase.
We did.
have a new truck.
The most recent replacement of the fire truck, David, was from the first one that the
one with
repair
problem.
costs. It's been referred to as a lemon.
Okay.
Hold on, so explain that to me, Laura, because I remember we pushed the fire truck backwards when Chief Yohe was there, and then we got a second one now since Chief Ellis has been here.
So I believe it predates. Yeah, that makes sense that this would be.
Yeah, I think it predates almost everyone except for you and I and Pam. So,
Yeah.
but my understanding is we went out of order of replacement and we replaced the newer one before we replaced the older one because of its lack of functioning.
I got you. So effectively, we're gonna have 3 new fire trucks that are all under 10 years old.
No, one of those was replaced again, if I understand correctly.
We did a trade-in.
Yeah.
Okay,
less
okay,
than
I
10
see
years
what you're
old.
saying.
Right?
Right.
We traded in the one that was less than 10 years old and kept the 14-year-old.
That's
right?
correct. Yes. The ladder truck is what I think you replaced twice along the way was the lemon. So you have a new ladder truck, a new ambulance on the way, a reserve engine, and then this engine, which rolls out of Firehouse One, I think is about 14 years old.
All right, thank you.
Eric, before we move on, the Safe Streets grant match,
Yes,
that's a 3-year grant.
that is a 3-year grant. Yes. So, and it's a planning and demonstration grant. So that will write the city's plan for the safe streets, a Vision Zero policy that you all passed to achieve 0 pedestrian deaths in the city. Create that safe streets plan, which is necessary to then make us eligible for the federal action planning, the action grant to implement. But they also did give us about $1.2 million, I believe was the amount for demonstration projects around the city. And again, that's not major reconstructions, but high visibility markets, signings and things like that.
Thank you.
Yes.
So to go back to engineering special, so the balance that we have in the capital improvement.
Mhm. Yep.
That is after our FY 24.
Correct.
And,
That's correct.
and weren't some of the, like, the city hall roof, what was it, 120,000?
That's correct. Yes.
This is showing the full cost, not the difference, right?
The 490 is the full cost. Yes.
And other grant also, was that in an out year or was that in?
It's in an out year, but it is not yet on any of the plans into where. Correct. No.
Anything else on here?
Nothing on this list other, City Hall roof on this list is the only FY 24 obligation that's been made. So the rest of these projects are known. We will need to appropriate the funding, but they have not been yet budgeted for that funding.
So in our SIP plan, then we have FY 25 things that have already been defined that aren't on this list. The expectation then is the revenue granted from taxes will cover those projects.
Some of them again. So
Yeah.
the fire engine's a great example. There's a lead time on that. We'll have to encumber that money and appropriate it
Yeah.
well ahead of delivery. And so the fire engine's actually on the FY 25 plan, but there's not enough revenue that will come in to
Gotcha.
fund the fire engine
Okay.
in that year.
I have a question about the Safe Streets.
Yep.
Allowable funds. As I understand it, the Safe Street grant is for planning. But our match is for implementing things, or is that going into plannings again?
It goes to both. So the grant is a planning and demonstration grant. So implementation, meaning the full on, once we have a plan to implement that will be another different grant.
So demonstration plan, is that grant, is that meaning like prototype?
Prototypes,
of the different things?
I'll give you an example. If you see the high visibility flashing pedestrian signs in
Yeah.
places, demonstration projects like that could be a demonstration of temporary barriers, demonstrating, do we need a pedestrian
Yeah.
walkway in an
Yeah.
area and
Yeah.
certain things
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
Speed bumps or
All that.
whatever, okay.
Other questions?
Just try and turn to the next slide. I'm sure we'll think of something.
All right. So I have 2 more slides here just about projects that we know are coming up. We have applied for the EV charging grant of about 2.6 million, I believe, for charging stations throughout the city of Webster Groves for electric vehicles. We have not yet been awarded, but I've given you the number. So if we are awarded and want to accept the grant, we would need to have a $500,000 match. You are all familiar with Jackson Road stormwater issues. I have included both west and east of I-44. We obviously own some land to the west and also, but to the east, there are issues that flow into Blackburn Park in terms of storm. Fire Station 1, we have remodeling. You have put money in the 24 budget, $200,000 to do some beginning remodeling. I believe bathrooms are the first project. Certainly, there is more that will need to be done at Fire Station 1. City Hall flooring is added. That it was removed from the capital plan for this year out of cost, but at some point, we're on about 23-year-old carpet. Some of the tile is starting to go in places. We'll need to look at flooring in some of the high traffic areas.
Eric.
Yes.
On budget, I know it's the city hall roof. Then we have the city hall flooring. Or the roofing areas in the area we need flooring.
Well, yes, so the roof covers everywhere we need floor to not to be flippant, but I think the roof areas really are, if I'm correct, and Dr. Peoples can help, above us. There are some asbestos issues over this part of City Hall, and then over the angled roof right out to the, what we call the attic. And then also over the hose tower, there's some asbestos as well in this building. So that's really the cost. The roofing is itself not costly. It is the remediation and abatement issues that we're going to deal with.
Just want to make sure we don't put the chicken before the egg.
I think that's why when you, this slide is really to give you a sense of things down the road that aren't
Mhm.
built into the capital plan, that leaning into our strategic initiatives, may need some conversations about funding. The roof certainly, as you'll see in our recommendations, would be a primary need. The building must have a good roof to make all those other improvements.
Madam Mayor and Council, I would just add a couple of things to that. For the last couple of years, we've made a lot of progress on some of the deferred maintenance that had not been done. One of those that's incredibly visible is the plaza that's been redone outside. So obviously the roof will need to be done sooner rather than later. And unfortunately, it did come in so much higher, as Mr. Peterson explained. But the city hall flooring, as he shared, 23 years old. And there's other items on this list that aren't quite as big, but there's a lot of still deferred maintenance that needs to be taken care of as we move forward. So we'll continue working with council on budgeting those.
And then looking ahead to strategic plan, obviously we have some very big and ambitious goals, and how will we fund them in the future? Sustainability, diversity, equity, and inclusion, attainable housing measures. We have the stormwater master plan, which of course we've contracted with the consultants. What will come out of that? How do we implement and provide funding for that implementation? And then many other initiatives that are built in the strategic plan as well. So things to think about, that we're never really done with all these projects and issues that we must attempt.
When do we expect the stormwater master plan?
I'm going to turn to Dr. Peoples on that one, if we know.
Madam Mayor, it's a great question. I'll have to get back with you on that. We are closing the data, I am sure, on that for some of the stormwater collection. Hopefully each of you have filled out the survey that went along. So that closes, I want to say end of March. We will have some of the information back. But I'll get a firm answer.
I'm not trying to rush. It's
Mm.
just that, we're in terms of thinking about budget cycle, when do we get that in planning purposes?
Well, it'll be helpful. We have several plans, the comprehensive plan. We have several of those plans that in reality should dovetail in so many conversations.
Thank you.
Mayor and council members, we'll move into floodplain properties, give you a sense of our inventory there and some of the different funding sources. In the special initiative fund this year, you did provide $500,000 towards the flood buyouts. The two repetitive loss buyouts that you approved, the cost estimated for buyouts and demolition is $60,000. And then the demolition cost for the 4 homes not approved for purchase is about $80,000, which leaves you a balance of about $340,000. Again, these are estimates. Obviously, we won't know official numbers until we have all those bids secured and such, but.
And this is separate from the balances that you
That's
showed
correct.
us.
That's
Thank you.
correct. This is a budgeted amount of 500,000 that we expect to spend 160 on, meaning you have 340,000 more that was budgeted that would be available.
I'm trying to understand that number, because how is this different than the 96,000 figure that we were given when we made the decision to move forward with the 2 repetitive?
So thank you, Councilwoman Alexander. So those were estimates of home value at this point in time. Some of those Appraisals have been done. We still have not received the final word from FEMA on the repetitive loss purchases. It's still in progress. So this really is a placeholder because they did approve the other ones, as you all know, that were not repetitively damaged. It is expected that these will be. So right now, this is really just a formality. But the difference in the numbers is simply that we've gotten more hard numbers based on property values and how much demolition will cost.
So instead of 96 with the confirming that we've done, we're looking at about 60, but did we not include? Did I understand that all of the costs weren't included in that 96? But we thought that that included our 25% plus the demolition, but it only included our 25%, the 96.
For the substantially damaged
The
homes
two
that council was considering, for the two properties, I think
It's
Mara's
90
online.
It's a difference.
The 90-10
Yeah, it's a
for the
difference.
9 to
repetitive.
10, that's right, it was 10%, but
I'm
of that
sorry.
10%, I'm sorry, of
Yeah.
that 10%, I thought when we voted on that, that cost to us of that 10% was 96,000 or 86, something, but it wasn't 60.
I would have to
That's
look back in our notes and see what that was.
You're correct, madam. That was about the number, the appraisals since that time. So the reassessments happened at the beginning of 2023. That data was made available probably really October. It really got finalized when we did property tax rates. The values of all those properties plummeted, obviously with the flood damage. So we anticipate that what we're hearing from FEMA is that's where we're seeing that difference in the number. It's the overall cost to purchase has gone down of those two properties. Hence our 10% comes down. I know the fire department is doing some training burns, I think is the plan for some of those homes,
That's the plan.
which helps with the demolition cost and removing some of those estimates as well.
But when I thought I understood that when we even did the estimate of that 96, I mean, of that 10%, that it didn't actually include the demolition.
I couldn't speak to that. I'm sorry. I don't know off the top of my head.
I will look back, Councilwoman Alexander, at our numbers and see. Mara was online. I want to put her on the spot and I don't know if she still is. Excuse me. She may recall that. But regardless, I will look back at the numbers that we presented and let you know.
But still, basically what this is saying, that whatever we thought it was gonna be then was an estimate. Right now for these two properties, it looks like the cost of the 10% plus the demolition will run about 60.
That's right.
Just wanted to note there is a little bit of a math error on the slide,
Oh.
so it's not something.
Did I
to
make
be
a math
ignored.
error? Please tell me I didn't make a math error, did I? Did I add 80 and 60 and get 340?
Maybe. Didn't want to
What
pretend
happens
like
when
it
I can't
wasn't
use
there.
Excel to build a PowerPoint? So thank you all.
Sorry.
Appreciate that. No, that's good. Good catch. What's the right number?
360,
360.
my.
I know. 360, yes. Lost my clicker. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
So these are the OMCI funds, Madam Mayor and members. These are terms that I know you know, but the community probably doesn't know. OMCI funds are related to the sewer district, MSD. So if you look at your property tax bill, you're going to see an extra line. It'll say Deer Creek, Gravois Creek, or Seminary Branch. These are sub-districts, so they have a property tax that's assessed. It's very small, but it is accumulated over time in those districts. And we have balances held by MSD that can be used for stormwater-related projects in those districts. So the stormwater fund, again, is at 1.5 million. OMCI Deer Creek is at 610. Gravois Creek is about 60,000. It's our smallest sub-district, and Seminary Branch is about 250,000. Our next slide is going to look at that map for all of you to know where that's at. I'll try my best to. This map came from MSD. There's a Homeland Security block on using the data in some regards because of terrorist implications. So the map, we couldn't change the colors, which makes it tough to see. But essentially, most of the area north of 44, most of it is in the Deer Creek sub-district. Now, of course, that line, the vibrant blue line running through the middle of town is the separation. It comes down 44, cuts under through Webster University, up around right by the Repertory Theater, down Big Bend, and grabs a piece of the area, the south edges of Gore and Gray, over really, it looks, I think that's not Rock Hill, it's a little further over into that area and in puts that area south of that in the Seminary Branch. The Seminary Branch is for the river to pair, and essentially water below that line and in that Seminary Branch flows towards Blackburn Park and out towards the seminary in Shrewsbury. Water in the Deer Creek area would flow and naturally go into the Deer Creek watershed. And then the Gravois Creek area to the south is really down, generally it's Rock Hill Road over to Grant and the southern portion flowing towards Gravois Creek. So those are the three geographic areas.
Eric, can I congratulate you on your pronunciation of Gravois?
Not fully yet indoctrinated, so. Yes,
You'll be fine. So Gravois Creek is the one that is within the black boundaries, but is like beige under gray.
that's correct. Yeah, so
Okay.
it is in the bottom left corner of the city. So from Watson Road up to really about 44, a little section of over by Mary Queen of Peace is in the Gravois Creek area there. And then that goes, it's in the, I believe that's Webster Woods, Webster Gardens area, in that area between Rock Hill and Elm is sort of the dividing lines there.
Okay. So then the seminary branch is like that pinkish
That-
color under
that-
the gray.
Yes, yep.
Thanks.
Eric, real quick, how does we use those funds? Is our determination or is it MSD?
It is our determination approved by, if I understand correct, approved by MSD, but we can apply to use them in whatever fitting way towards stormwater or sewer issues within those districts. So.
Thank you.
Eric, before you go on,
Mhm.
please. Councilwoman Alexander Mara was online and she texted me a response. She said she thinks that that larger number that you asked the question about was from when we thought that we would need a 25% match for the homes.
So connecting all this now to the floodplain properties that we have all discussed, just to give you a sense, across our entire floodplain, the entire city of Webster Groves, there are 318 total parcels in the FEMA 500-year floodplain. And I provided the number of parcels by their zoning code. Obviously, the residential codes have the vast majority of those parcels. There are 3 parcels that are not zoned. There are some very small parcels. I'll give you a sense. Across from Barbary Park, we own a tiny little point of land between the turn lane and the driving lane, and that's a parcel. Obviously, we split it off from a residential parcel at some point. So we have some small parcels in there. I think, that's a very big number of parcels. Many of them have a very small piece of floodplain within a whole parcel, but obviously parcels are what we have to buy if we are looking at the program. So moving forward, to this one, we used the county assessor data for you to give you a sense of the tax implications and also the values. So all 318 parcels, that removes the 2 that we have already agreed to buy out, are by the assessor appraised at about $135 million worth of value. That's the assessor's value. I want to be very clear. Market value may be much different. Obviously, we don't often sell our homes for what the assessor has appraised us at. 25% of that of a cost share would be about 33 million. Again, if the assessments were higher, that would be higher. That number encompasses all the parcels if we were, to have a program to buy out parcels or need to. Jurisdictions, for all taxing jurisdictions, those 318 parcels in real estate property taxes provide $1.7 million to the school system, the county, the city, all the property tax jurisdictions. City real property to us as the city, it's about $158,000 for those parcels. That doesn't include any personal property tax for people that live there for their vehicles, their sewer lateral fees or other fees and assessments that are on those properties or that those folks would pay into.
Was the 158 part of the 1.7?
Yes, it is. Yep. It is just simply our segment of the property tax levy. And that is at this year's rates and at that amount of assessed value. So obviously, that any increase in assessed values changes the rates, but essentially that's what the property tax number we're looking at. And that 158 is not just general fund, that's across the 4 different tax streams that we as the city have on the property tax: street improvement, debt relief, general fund, and also the pension fund.
And the 33 million would be a one-time cost, but the 1.7 million is an annual.
That's
cost.
at this current tax rate, that is all taxing jurisdictions
For
would be a loss of revenue, yes. we wanted to provide that just to simply give you a sense, you have the decision power on those properties under that program and they're, you know, so you would know the value of those properties to other taxing jurisdictions as well. So looking at these projects, we wanted to put some recommendations for you. I think Dr. Peoples and I are hoping for your discussion. I don't think we anticipate you saying tonight, we're going to do all these things on this list, but it's really for your rumination as we go forward. Go back here. So we obviously have many different projects to award. The Safe Street grant, we do recommend that come from the Street Improvement Fund for that grant match. That we use some street improvement and capital improvement for the South Elm grant. I do want to point out that is the one project on this list that could be on the bond for Prop W. Not saying it has to be, but it could be. It's just want to make you all aware that that is an eligible use. The charging grant, if we were to be awarded, we would anticipate coming from capital improvement. We would not want to use the ARP fund for that simply because while I think it's fine, we don't want to have the feds come and say you can't use federal money to match federal money. So the Elm at Kirkham culvert, this is where we anticipate using stormwater fund and then Deer Creek funds. That's an eligible use of those funds held at MSD. And then providing for the Gore at Kirkham culvert out of the Deer Creek funding as well at OMCI and MSD. I know you have it printed in front of you. City Hall roof, we have 120,000 in the budget in capital improvement, and we suggest taking the biggest chunk of the ARP fund to make up that balance, 370,000 to get that project done. And then fire engine replacement, I'm really sorry about the formatting here on the screens. We'll fix that in the future. But we've obviously the large capital asset replacement, capital improvement fund, the small little bit of ARP left, the special initiatives fund, that the balance that's left, 360, not 340. So Councilmember Richardson, and also the 95 that you have, and that still will need an infusion of about 109,000 from the general fund balance to be able to support that purchase if we were to move forward with these current numbers. I do want to point out, I know folks online, you can't see it as well, but the slide we'll post, if Prop W is not passed, if the Park and Recreation Destination WG bond is not passed, this whole project slate needs to be reassessed because there are capital improvements within the park system that will need to be added into these funding streams. So I think it really points out, from my perspective and my words to you, the necessity of that bond on top of more just the things we want to do, but also the things we need to do. And it gives us the capacity across the city to accomplish many of the projects that we want to see done. So if we do all of that, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor.
No, keep going.
If we do all of that, these are the fund balances that we would have. We would, again, fund balances does not mean that we don't have tax revenue coming in. This is, I don't like using savings, but I'll use the word savings. We would pull down many funds and use those savings. That would still leave 1.3 in stormwater, which again, to the master plan, we expect to have some large infrastructure there. And then Seminary Branch and Gravoy Creek would both have the OMCI funds left, as there are not projects yet used on that part. All of this to say also grant funding may improve all these balances. We are looking at a grant for the fire engine. We believe we would be in strong position for the SAFER grant. But obviously we need to apply and make that a reality. So we are not depending on that till we have much better indications, and we would continue to look for other funding sources. Grants still take a match, so we still have to find some semblance of money at some point to pay for these things.
All right, so we have lots of information. As Eric said, I don't think we need to make final decisions, although I don't know that we want to put too much of this off. I will say one of the uncertainties here also is MSD has 2 ballot initiatives, one of which will, I think, impact whether or not they decide to do a buyout program of their own, which it would be useful to have that information making decisions as well. But if you could go back to the recommendation slide, do people have, so please share your thoughts about where you are right now with these things.
So I want to make sure I understand that the project recommendations is that basically we have the funds already, just in different categories to do most of these projects.
We have cash on hand to be able to do these projects in the way we've laid out right now, but that it does take most of the cash on hand in these special funds to do that in this way.
And any idea about the fire engine replacement? What kind of timeline? 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years?
To,
I'm just saying, I'm looking at the last, how much time it took for the last engine to get to us.
thank you, Councilman Smith. There's not been any improvement in those deliverables. As Mr. Peterson said, it's in the 2025 plan to purchase. I would say we'd be lucky if we get it in 2028.
28.
Yes, ma'am. It's about a 3-year lead time.
And when in that lead time do we actually have to pay for the thing?
Well, if you pay up front, you actually get a discount and it doesn't increase your time, but you do get a discounted price.
So they will not move on a purchase on these without an encumbrance of funds and a purchase
Okay.
order, which of course means to be able to do so, we have to have a budgeted amount. So you would budget in 25, we would issue a purchase order, maybe in 28, whenever delivery would come, obviously on these projects. Ambulance, you all approved in the fiscal year 22 budget in the late 21. I think we expect it
Here.
we expect it sometime this spring, so. I believe.
Don't hold your breath.
I guess, so. And that's an ambulance compared to a heavy truck chassis engine, so.
Would you, not putting you on the spot here, but I am putting you on the spot, the culvert items as needed, would you put them in priority?
So I'm not a stormwater expert, but I have seen Shady Creek flood. I think we all have, and what happens on Kirkham. I think there will be much more out of the stormwater plan than just these culverts. Certainly Elm at Kirkham is an immediate, we know that grant is awarded. We need to match that. My perspective, again, not as an expert, Gore at Kirkham will need to be done soon. We may want to wait for the master plan to be done, but I think it's going to tell us we need a new culvert and a more capacity in that culvert as well.
Thank you.
What would the EV charging grant, like, what would that entail? What would be the product of it?
The EV charging grant is actually putting EV charging stations around the city. So these would be much like the one at City Hall. There are no known plans to have EV charging stations added by any of the private entities. And obviously, the federal government, we are going towards electric vehicles, certainly our own fleet, but that grant would provide 26, 27, somewhere in that range of charging stations across the city in both the public lots and also for city use as well.
Wow.
They're not free though, right?
No, they're charged. We are currently charging 25 cents a kilowatt hour. So we are pulling in revenue from the one here at City Hall by way of example. And in our budget update 2 weeks from now, I intend to have a comparison for you on some usage with the patrol car and then how much we're making off of those charging stations.
And just as a teaser, we are not making much, which was never the plan on the charging stations. I think one of the quarters I looked at may have been $43. So it's,
But we're not subsidizing.
no, not at
Yeah.
all. And Councilman Franklin, the EV charging grant, as Mr. Peterson shared, it would be for public use, and there's several of them. I want to say at least 8 of the charging stations were designed to be ADA accessible, and several of them would run off of solar as well.
Excellent. So, Madam Mayor, to answer your question, I'm on board with all of these. I would rather wait on the culverts until we get the stormwater assessment. And the only one that, other than that gives me pause is the fire truck. I want to think about that a little bit more, but all the others look okay to me.
On the culvert thing, just to chime in on that a little bit, I mean, I think that the train's already going on the Elm at Kirkham one. So I definitely wouldn't want to recommend a pause on that one. The Gore at Kirkham one has been much discussed since the big development plans, and I would be hesitant to pause on that as well. Just my 2 cents on those 2 issues. I think they're both pretty important. But aside from that, I mean, this is like $4.4 million of city dollars that we have available to invest in the city. And a lot of these are being leveraged towards grant funding, which I think is great. I mean, more items than not on this list have some grant either secured or planned or in the works. So I think that's fantastic. Looking at the fund balances in the list, some of those dollars will go to zero and stay at zero, like the American Rescue Plan dollars, like we spend that, that's gone. but most of the other ones, correct me if I'm wrong, have annual revenue that will come back in, so those funds will be replenished over time.
That is correct. The Special Initiatives Fund is the only one without a dedicated funding stream. That's the new fund we created this year. So obviously in the budget process, if you chose to put fund balance into that, you certainly could.
And then, so my one kind of hesitation in general is, like, what if we do have an emergency that comes up that would have fit into one of these before they're replenished, you know, like a stormwater thing or a, ambulance thing or something that we don't have on this list yet? What's our contingency if something like that comes up?
The real contingency is the general fund balance. The general fund balance is your most discretionary use balance, and there is plentiful funds of one-time dollars there to be able to manage. We hold, our plan is always, currently the policy is to hold at least 50% of the operating budget in fund balance, or to make a plan to get back to that. 50% is 10 million. So we are well over that. So there are funds there for the emergency moments that come up.
That's
So-
great. And that was my last question, is just a clarification that this does not impact what we have set aside for the fund balance for.
The only general fund balance change would be that 109,000 if you were to do the fire engine as we laid out right now. So
Great.
And just so council's aware, we have tentatively scheduled, I think it's February, to talk about our fund balance policy. That has been something that's come up repeatedly. And, having just been through the pandemic, and I know it's still ongoing, so I don't want to sound too final about that, but, we managed to maintain a strong fund balance in the worst local government disaster in a generation. So
That's the
it'll be-
reserves, is that?
that's the reserves, yeah. So I think it is a good time for us to talk about that, especially in the context of what you're talking about, is that, we don't want to put the city in a position where emergency action can't be taken if necessary. Yeah. Right, I agree.
I
So the-
do, go ahead, Pam.
The American Rescue Plan, 375,000, does that include the 340,000 that we had set aside of ARPA money for?
that 375 is FY 23 plans that were not able to be done. Some of the solar projects you approved were moved into other, obviously the bond issue for the Parks and Recreation solar. Some of the electric vehicles were not available for purchase. So that money fell back to the bottom line.
Okay, so the $340,000 is a question mark.
360, but yes, yeah.
360,
It's still there. If you don't do that, we have got it in the fire
I'm
truck
raising
right now. So,
Yeah.
so if you don't use it, it's there.
Okay.
I agree with Councilman Shepherd with the culvert. I'd like to throw the city hall roof in there as well,
To do,
to the roof.
As,
It's
yeah.
it's a priority.
Sarah and Karen, do you have anything you want to?
I just had a question on the Safe Streets and the South Elm Multi-Use Path Grant. Street improvement and capital improvement, but did that include, because I know there were conversations and questions a couple of meetings back from the citizens around sidewalks and walking paths around the South Elm up there near, I guess that's Glen Road,
Glendale?
Glendale.
Yeah,
Is that in?
yeah, that's the share. So the multi-use path means walking and biking shared
what I was
use.
thinking.
Yeah.
But this is specifically on Elm from Glendale to Watson.
Right.
Mhm.
So it wouldn't include sidewalks in like the Colebrook area.
Oh,
That
right.
would be separate.
Would not.
I would anticipate, Madam Council Member, that the Safe Street Plan will really be Safe Street planning for a Vision Zero is really going to involve some real sidewalk and curb separation type of conversation. So you're going to have a lot of sidewalk conversations and pedestrian crossing and access issues in that Safe Street planning. And some demonstration funds may be able to flow to some of those areas that we've heard about. So.
Okay.
I don't really have questions. I feel like, I agree with what's been said. I think, I'm not sure we're really being asked to prioritize because it sounds like we can do all of it if we want to. So it's, but I think, I think the roof and the culverts are big priority, and I'm a big fan of grant matches. So, anything that we can do to get more bang for our buck is a good thing.
What type of percent down payment we have to do on the fire engine from to get started on it? All of it?
All of it.
50%?
Purchase orders for the entire cost to get that discount that city attorney's talking about.
But the purchase order would be for the full amount, but how much would we actually like pay to the fire truck company up front?
By state law and by ordinance, I cannot encumber any funds with a purchase order until you budget that exact amount. So
But like a check going to them?
you would not pay a check at all, but I
Right.
can't give a purchase order unless you budget it. and then
Absolutely,
so,
yeah, but they're not gonna, it's not like they're gonna have all of
No,
our money.
they would
before we
not
have a
get the
truck.
money, but you would lose access to be able to use that money until the delivery of the truck. So
And that amount includes any trade-in or anything else we would do to offset?
that is well, we weren't planning to trade in. Our reserve is much older, so the current engine would flow to be the reserve engine.
But the old reserve doesn't get anything?
There's little value left in that old reserve.
It's gotta
We
be like
may-
a
we
good
may-
Ford
It's
ride
right.
kind of deal on it.
We may get the gas for a year on the fire engine out of it, so. There is, we are working with our grant folks, the Safer Grant, it's a fire-specific grant, a fire department-specific grant that can go for heavy apparatus like that, and that is our hope. And we're looking at it, we're preparing, I think I would call it the prospectus, sort of the first round of things on it, but that's a very possible opportunity. We just don't know if we're gonna get it, so.
And so we're certainly not deep into budget conversations yet, but on the fire engine, I would recommend that we probably table the conversation until we hear back from the grant, which could be some time. So again, it's planned currently for FY 25. Would like to have some conversations, of course, with fire chief, but if we have an opportunity to get grant funds, we should certainly utilize it.
I just have a couple of thoughts. One is, some of our priorities, our strategic planning priorities are certainly reflected in here. There are a number that are not. And so I want us to, but to some degree, some of that I think is the nature of what these restricted funds can do. So I'm not suggesting that we can just do anything with them, but I just want to, point out that I think we need to be clear when we're making these decisions that if we're, there's a fair amount of sustainability related stuff on here. That's great. But let's not forget where we spent that money when we're thinking about general fund and do we want to do something more with housing or something more with one of our other priorities as well. The second thing, I mean, I would personally like us to just go ahead and formally say to staff that all the matching grants, of the grants we've already received, that we just go ahead and approve those so that staff can move ahead and we don't have to worry about losing that grant money in the interim. So I think that would be the Safe Streets, the South Elm, Elm and Kirkham.
That's correct.
Those are the three. And if council's open to just going ahead and saying, let's give staff permission to move forward with that allotment of money, I'd be happy to entertain or make a motion if that's necessary at that point. You'd probably have to come back with documentation to
amendment.
us anyway, so.
Yeah, so if that's your direction, that's fine. We'll bring a budget amendment next meeting for you all to approve those appropriations to make the matches.
Anybody have an objection to
Nope.
that coming forward, David? Okay. I also wanted to sleep today, making at least one real decision here. work
Could we
decision.
do a separate or like, could the roof go ahead and move forward too?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me
Seems
as
like
well.
we're on consensus a little bit on that too.
Everybody okay with the roof amendment being prepared as well?
But what about the Elm and Kirkham culvert? That's not a match. That's something. that can
Elman
be done.
Kirkham is, but
Or-
not
Elm and
Kirkham.
Kirkham is.
Yeah, Elman Kirkham. And so what about Gora Kirkham? Where are we like in the life cycle of that project?
I believe that one is still scheduled for 27.
Okay,
So it's a ways out. If it can move up, we would like to be in the position
Yeah.
for it to move up. At this point in time, it hasn't yet.
okay. So you don't need a decision from us on
No.
that one in particular right now. That's not as time sensitive as the Elm one.
No.
So may I recap, going through the city hall roof in there and what other, items?
Yeah, so it would be Safe Streets for All, South Elm Multi-Use Path, Elm and Kirkham Culvert, and the City Hall roof. So 1, 2, 3, 4.
Not the charging grant.
We don't have it
We haven't been
yet.
awarded that yet.
Oh, sorry. okay.
So, and I assume that number will move based on the amount of the grant amount that we receive anyway,
That's correct.
or could.
And then of the items not on this list yet, but on the other list, we've got the city hall flooring, was the only one that had like a hard number, I think, related to it.
I don't think
No,
that one
that-
had a number on.
It did not have a number on it.
Oh,
it
did,
is-
that one didn't
yeah,
have a number?
It's, you'd be amazed how much the flooring has cost.
Oh, okay.
It's,
So you don't need a decision on
No,
that.
that
item
I think is
today.
really in the next budget process. We'll
Okay.
bring
And
it.
this, thank you. This was not meant to be the full budget discussion. This was
Of
just.
course, yeah.
There's many more recommendations we'll be bringing forward.
So that's great. And then my last thing to raise is in doing all this, we now have a lot more information about what the potential impact of additional buyouts would be. But we still need to have a discussion about, are we going to try and fund some reserve to pay out for additional 90-10 buyouts? That didn't get covered here, and I want to make sure that we put a place mark in that, because I think that is a discussion that probably comes in the context of the budget that we really need to have.
Because right now we've got that money plugged into the fire engine.
If-
Or the safety if Prop W does not pass. So I'm figuring that's a
360.
discussion. Correct.
Yeah.
Did I say 340? That's because I'm
the
looking at
demand-
the
No,
thing.
no, I agree.
Um,
Yeah.
But nonetheless, there's no point in talking about some of these things if they're related to the budget for 25. Because we don't know about Prop W, we don't know about the MSD money. There's a lot of unknowns. So.
Yeah. But I also just want us to continue to mark in time that we haven't done that, because I don't want it to go off the radar.
Mhm.
I agree.
Okay, do you need anything else from us on this topic?
Do you need anything else from us?
No, I appreciate all the data.
Yep.
All right, so that will leave us for our work session topics to talk about appointments to boards and commissions. We have, where's the right sheet of paper? Thank you. Okay, so let's do the other reappointments first before we talk about Green Space Advisory. Ken Burns, you got a memo, is stepping down. The vacancy will be advertised. Kyle Wilson is also stepping down to focus on Plan Commission. As you may know, he's been doing both. Angela Thompson served in the ARB, has now been off for almost 2 years. Has been for 2 years, right?
I guess it might have, I mean, at least a year.
It's October 22, so that's 2 years. She has
No,
Year and a half.
no, year and a
year and a half. Yeah, we're having math problems. I'm really sorry about that. I'm just gonna
Over a
join
year,
your, yeah.
Months over a year.
Scrambling my
Yeah.
brain, that's all.
Sorry, I'm already I'm doing the math for 24. It doesn't matter where we are in the calendar. Anyway. Yeah, it has been 1 year, which does fit our policy, so she can go back on. The question is, she already re-interviewed when we appointed David Yates. Can we reappoint her? Can we appoint her without having her come back to interview again? As a
Yes.
past
Yes.
member and a
Yes.
recent interview, are we in
Yes.
favor of making that appointment?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because then she said
Preference.
she wanted
Yeah.
to do
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
She
All right.
is, so she's coming back as an alternate.
she's coming back as an
Because
alternate.
we still have a full spot though, right?
Yes, one full vacancy, and that's gonna be advertised now.
Okay.
Do
Okay,
we
so
want to check in with Angela since it's been a year to see if she wants the full position? Cause her, or have you already?
Yeah, she does.
She's still, that is the same. Okay, she still wants to be the alternate. Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
as usual, our city clerk's ahead of the rest of us.
These Things
Uh,
can change in
But I
1
think,
to 2
I think
years.
the thing was, is then we would have 2 people on ARB and the same 2 people on historic preservation. And that seemed to be where the conflict was, as I remember.
Gotcha,
Wait,
It was
because
who's on historic preservation?
Carol is
Oh,
on both,
okay.
full-time.
I didn't realize she was
And
on
then,
historic.
yeah. So that was kind of the thinking behind.
And I think it was also Angela had been on for a little while and ready for,
yeah, she had already served.
we
2
were ready. for
Yes.
something else, Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we're in favor of appointing Angela
Mm-hmm.
Alternate.
Mhm.
as alternate?
Yes.
Okay. David, I'm looking at you. You can just nod, okay, or not. All right, and then we have Jeannie Kleckner and Ashley Merriams, who have both applied for Green Space Advisory. As per our policy, Green Space Advisory, that's
Me.
you, yes. Do you
Yeah.
have any thoughts you'd like to share with us?
I mean, they both are good. They both have, kind of a gardening and climate environment uh, priorities. I would lean a little bit more towards Jeannie. And then, I think Ashley was interested in some other commissions as well. So maybe there's one of those that'll have an opening soon that we could reach out to her and find a spot for her as well. I think they're both good candidates.
Other comments?
What are the other current openings? We have a couple, right? I know PCEB still has theirs.
Architectural review,
Yeah. they are-
Review Board, Historic.
You turned it off by accident.
Historic Preservation, and,
And now we have Arts Commission as well.
and Arts Commission. That's basically it.
Wasn't Ashley
PCEB is
available,
filled.
interested in arts? Wasn't arts
Uh,
one of the ones that Ashley? was
Ashley
interested in?
was, but the time, she has a time.
Oh, the
conflict.
time, that was the time
Mhm.
conflict. Sorry, Pam, I keep talking over you.
So on that topic, though, I would encourage all of us to, whether it's, social media, email, talking to friends, remind people that we have openings and that we really would like to have people apply. And remember, as part of our policy now, if you are the liaison to one of those boards or commissions, you're supposed to help encourage the board in its recruitment of new members. So
I don't know any.
you don't know any architects?
I'll try them.
The ARB spot, is that a architect spot
Yeah,
only?
they're all architects.
They're all.
Yes,
architects. It's planned that has like a mix, maybe.
Yeah.
And then HVZ is just community, and then PCEB, what's the sub? Is that just community member as well for the police community engagement board?
It's
Um,
still religious.
There's a clergy and a business owner, I believe, needed.
Thought we got
I
the
thought
business
we
owner
back
with
good-
John
Oh,
Stout-
Leopard.
Souder.
Souder, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's right. But while Katie's looking that up, so we have a suggestion that we appoint Jeannie. Is there any objection to appointing Jeannie?
I think it's a good idea. Yep.
Okay. You're still on. You just turned
Well,
your
I
head.
still have as the list, the business owner and clergy, but, I think, it could be a resident as well.
Is,
know.
where is John Sauter listed?
He is the business owner.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, well, we will all take our job and go out and recruit some people. I know a couple architects we
Oh,
can
good.
talk.
Yeah.
So, all right, anything else for this work session, or do we want to take a couple minutes and then we'll come back for our regular meeting? Emerson's got us on a time schedule, so.
Oh, yeah, we only got 15 minutes left.
Yeah, he's there. All right, welcome to the regular meeting of the Webster Groves City Council for January 2nd, 2024. See how long I go before I call it 2023 again. We welcome comments from visitors. Today we have very few in our audience. But we do have a few online. So if you are online and would like to make a public comment, we'd ask you to use the raise your hand function when we get to that point of the agenda. And we will call on you at that point in time. I think we are ready for the roll call then.
Yes, Mayor. Mayor Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss,
Or
Yes.
here.
Councilmember Franklin,
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Alexander,
Here.
Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
Councilmember Hickson Shepherd.
All right, thank you. We're going to start right away with remarks from community and visitors. I have no cards from the audience here. Is there anyone online who would like to make a comment? You can use the raise your hand function. All right, Mr. Buck, you are unmuted. Please go ahead and give us your name and address and your comment. 3 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is Dave Buck, 124 South Elm. I couldn't come in tonight because on the downside of COVID, but I'm here tonight on behalf of many in our community to strongly and seriously have you reconsider adding the indoor pool option as part of Prop W on the April ballot. It's not too late. It's a real simple story from my standpoint. First, many in our community have voiced their support for the indoor pool option per your data, but it was not included in the list of 27 destination WG possible projects, which I think was a huge missed opportunity. In other words, the community has not specifically had a chance to weigh in on the individual indoor pool option. From an annual operating expense perspective, which I think is your big stumbling block, there are solutions to that problem, particularly when you consider that 70% of our community has said that they would support a small tax increase or an increase in membership fees to help fund the annual operating and maintenance costs. That doesn't include sponsorships, naming rights, rental fees to other swim teams. There are other cities that do this, which leads me to my next point, which is the longevity of other municipal indoor pools. Consider this: the Center for Clayton, 22 years. The Lodge at De Pere, 20 years. The Point in Baldwin Commons, 28 years. The Heights in Richmond Heights, 20 years. The St. Peter's Recplex, 30 years. The Maryland Heights Center, 7 years. The Mid-County Y in Brentwood, 93 years. The Kirkwood Y, 67 years. These cities are not stupid and they aren't reckless with their finances. They have found a way to offer an indoor pool and all of its recreation activities and swim meet opportunities in their communities. I think Webster can do the same thing. All I'm asking is for you to give the community a chance to weigh in on this issue. They have not had that opportunity up till now. And you can do that by putting it on the ballot. And what I would strongly suggest is that just as voters can individually vote for city council candidates, they can vote for individual school board candidates, individual city
Time.
charter amendments. They should be able to vote for each individual project on as part of Prop W.
Thank you, Dave. Julie, you're Julie on the screen. If you could give us your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Julie Lefevre. I live at 24 Algonquin Lane, Webster Groves. I sent previously an email shortly about an hour ago with my support of the pool as well. In there, I actually laid out how you guys can fund the pool expenses. I sent a memo from the Kirkwood School District that rents their pool to the Parkway Swim Club. That is done at the cost of $100,000 a year. In addition, Clayton Shaw Park provides them additional rental to the tune of almost $10,000 a year. Right there, you're looking at a total of $140,000 just on rental income alone for 2 swim clubs using the facility. In the email, I laid out that I think that it is a responsibility to the school district, to the city of Webster, to provide a pool for the teams, for the community to swim, especially for the school district. Obviously, Webster Groves is landlocked. There's no place for us to build a pool. We have a facility that is not appropriate for use. We have divers that cannot practice with their team. They cannot compete at home meets. It's just an embarrassment for the school district and really for the city of Clayton, because as a partner, or Webster, sorry, as a partnership, I think that it's our responsibility as a city to have the best public school. We pay a really, really high
tax dollar. That's part of why we want to live here. I have 4 kids that are in the district, 2 of which have been on the dive and or swim team, and a third one that is a highly competitive swimmer that will be in Webster Groves. And I'm afraid, quite honestly, that she's not going to have a pool and she'll be leaving. There are a large number of really competitive, very fast kids coming into the Webster School District in the next 3 to 4 years. And the real problem is if there's not a team to house them, we will choose to go to another school district, whether we have to pay for it or not. The revenue can be brought in additionally from rental to a private club. It's also available to you through swim meets. Often swim meets charge $10 a head for the participants to watch. You're talking about 3-day swim meets, 5 different events, and $10 every time you walk in the door to watch your kids swim. It's easily funded. The money is readily there through those rentals, through swim meets, through divers, through other clubs that need pools, and everyone is clamoring and trying to fight for these pools. So the money is definitely there. I think that, as Dave Buck said, let the voters decide whether this is something they want. And I think that you'll see they do want it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment? All right, we will then move on to item number 3 of our agenda. Is there any new business from anyone on the dais? No new business? All right, let's go to unfinished business. And I would entertain a motion on bill number 9241 for its 3rd reading and adoption.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the 3rd reading and adoption of bill number 9241.
Second.
Bill 9241, 3rd and final reading. An ordinance providing for the submission to the qualified voters of the city of Webster Groves of amendments to the charter of the city, all of which should be submitted to the electors at the general municipal election on April the 2nd, 2024, and proposing amendments to the preamble and sections 2.12, 5.6, 5.18, subsection 2, 7.6, 7.12, 9.2, 10.3, 13.4, and 14.9.
Right, is there any additional discussion? All right, I think we're ready for the vote.
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander, Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hickson Shepherd,
Yes.
Mayor Arnold.
Yes. Is there anything anyone would like to remove from the consent agenda? Just going to make one note for the public record, as the city clerk told us, even though we have 3 members for 3 seats on the city council, we are required by state law to go ahead and have that election. The school board operates on its own set of rules, so that needs to go forward anyway. All right, Councilwoman Alexander, would you like to move for the adoption of the consent agenda?
Yeah, for the adoption of the consent agenda.
Second.
Councilmember Franklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yeah.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hickson Shepherd,
Yes.
Mayor Arnold.
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss.
Yes.
Right. Consent agenda is adopted, as was bill number 9241. We have made a couple of appointments to boards and commissions. Jeannie Klockner has been appointed to the Green Space Advisory Commission, and Angela Thompson has been appointed as the alternate member to the Architectural Review Board. And then Councilmember Bliss, I do believe you have a motion for a closed session.
Yes, I would like to call for executive closed session related to 4.
Well, it's actually, hold on.
I had
This
heard,
one's
but I
very
don't know.
specific, I think.
6.21 subsection. It's 20. Maybe it's 17.
17?
Hold on. What'd you say, Katie?
Is it 17?
I think it is 17.
Okay. Related to Missouri statute 610.021, open parens, 17, close parens.
Second?
Second.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander.
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson.
Yes.
Councilmember Hickson Shepherd.
Yes.
Mayor Arnold.
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss.
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin.
Yes.